On this week's MetPy Monday, find out how to upgrade to the latest version of MetPy and about some of the new features that we've added. Hello, I'm John Lehman, a software engineer at Unidata. On this week's MetPy Monday, I want to show you how to upgrade to the most recent release of MetPy, which would be 0.8, and some of the new features that have been added there. So as you can see, I'm at a bash prompt right now, and we're going to go ahead and activate whichever environment we want to upgrade MetPy in. In this case, I'm going to use the Unidata Workshop environment, as that's a nice environment that has many of the things that we already are going to want to run examples and so on in it. You can get this environment at the Unidata Python Workshop website. So to do that, we're going to type source activate and then the environment name, which is Unidata Workshop. If you're on a Windows machine, this will just be activate Unidata Workshop. Now you see that we're in that environment. So now if I run a conda list to show me all of the packages in this environment, and we scroll up to find MetPy, you can see that we're on MetPy 0.7. Well, just about a week ago, we've released MetPy 0.8. So I'm going to show you how to upgrade. Let me go ahead and clear the screen. There are a couple ways to do this. One would be to conda update and then MetPy, the name of the package that you want to update specifically. Another would be -- all. This will update all packages in your environment. Now, I don't want to upgrade packages that I am not ready to, maybe, if this has some legacy packages in it or something like that. So for this example, we're just going to conda update MetPy, but it's a good idea to at least have one environment that you conda update all regularly on to make sure that no new versions of something like NumPy or other packages break any of your code. So if we run conda update MetPy, the environment is going to get solved. It's checking to see if we need to update any dependencies, and eventually it will come back to you asking if you're ready to go. Okay, so here we say that we're ready to upgrade from 0.7 to 0.8. I'm going to press enter to accept the default, which is yes, and it's done. Your install might take a little bit longer if you need to download MetPy 0.8. In this case, since I've already installed it on my machine, in other environments, it was able to use a cached version. So I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen again. Depending on how your environment's set up, you might have had some trouble doing that. MetPy is available on Conda Forge, which we've talked about in an earlier MetPy Monday. If you don't know if you have Conda Forge in your Conda configuration, we can take a look at that. In this case, it is going to be your conda.rc file in your home directory. It's a .dot file, so it's hidden. If we look in there, we see I have Conda Forge in that list. And I also have this Conda Forge label testing, which is something we use for development quite often. If you don't see Conda Forge in your conda.rc file, you can add it by using the command conda config --add channels, and then the channel name, which is conda-forge. And that will add it to your configuration. So let's take a look now that you've upgraded to MetPy 0.8 at some of the new features. You can find the release notes either on the Unidata developers blog, or my preference is to go to GitHub. So this is the MetPy GitHub page, and I click the releases button. And here we see the release 0.8, and we see all of the release notes. A few things of note. One, lat-long grid spacing has been deprecated for lat-long grid deltas. The deltas give you a signed value. So if you have a grid that goes, for example, from high latitudes to low latitudes, that would be a negative dy. Using that with the sign makes derivatives and things work seamlessly. We don't have to manually keep track of that. So lat-long grid deltas is something that you should be starting to replace lat-long grid spacing with. The upper air support has been totally removed and moved to siphon. We have a video on how to do that. That's been a warning for last several versions. So if you need to do that, you go back and take a look at that documentation. One of the more interesting updates is that we're now using Xarray. So Xarray lets us have some custom things that make mapping much easier. For example, we can automatically deal with things like setting up your CartoPy projection. And we have some examples of that I'll show you. We also have adapted the Genie files to directly work with Xarray now. There have also been some changes in terms of just cleaning up the API, moving things into the proper namespace. So for example, for color tables, now you can get them from metpy.plots.colortables instead of having to go metpy.plots.colortables.registry. So it's a lot cleaner way to get to it. There are also some improvements to some of the calculations, things like LFC and EL. Isentropic interpolation has a number of tweaks that have been made to it. The add timestamp functionality is now configurable. And we have a whole list of new calculations that we're pretty excited about. Things like absolute vorticity, ageostrophic wind, apparent temperature, Brunt-Weissler frequency in period, the critical angle, which is a severe weather parameter, dew point from specific humidity. We've also added the Exner function, inertial effective wind. There's an angle parser that will parse strings. For example, if you had a bunch of observations that had any SW and so on for directions, it will parse those to degree values so you can use them in calculations or plotting. We can convert potential temperature to temperature. We also have potential vorticity, Q vector, saturation equivalent potential temperature, static stability, and wet bulb temperature, all in this release. Also, as you can see in the list, that we have a number of contributors. So thank you to all of our community contributors. If you do contribute pull requests to MetPy, we do send you a special MetPy sticker that says contributor that you can display on your laptop. So now if we head over to the MetPy documentation page, the first thing that you'll notice is there is now a warning on the home page. We will be dropping support for Python 2.7 in fall 2019. We have a whole page that talks about the rationale for this, but Python 2.7 is being end-of-lifed community-wide. It's going to become increasingly difficult to find packages that are 2.7 guaranteed, and 2.7 itself will stop being updated for security and everything in the relatively near future. So it's time to convert to Python 3. Go ahead and have a read there if you want to know more about it. One of the other things I want to look at are some of the examples. So you see that we have a few different examples now. For example, we show you how to use the gradient function, which can be a source of confusion as it's really a very versatile function. So you might want to check that one out. We've also updated some of the examples. So the familiar Genie example that's been in the gallery for several years now uses the new Xarray. So for example, we can use this parse climate forecast conventions. We're using Xarray to open the data set. As you can see, the actual code to do the plot is much shorter now. For the projection, we just have to let MetPy go ahead and figure out all of that projection information for us from the metadata in the file, instead of setting it all up ourselves. So that's a nice addition. We also have an Xarray projection example in the gallery now that shows you a little bit more about how that system works. I hope that you'll enjoy using MetPy 0.8. We're certainly very happy with the progress that MetPy is making, and thanks again to all the community members that are contributing code to MetPy. I hope that you found this useful, and we'll see you on next week's MetPy Monday.